Hi everybody. It's really great to be here with you, and as we were planning to start this month in a new Sunday school series, I decided to revive one that my husband and I had done a long time ago in Brazil, and we based it on actually two books that I'm going to show you. First of all is The Shepherd's Look at Psalm 23 by Philip Keller, and then also Traveling Light by Max Lucado. Both of these books can be found on Amazon. They're relatively cheap. I would suggest you buy them if you can, because most of what we're going to be talking about is based off of these two books. They're excellent reading. They're not heavy reading at all, and so it just gives us a lot of good insight into what we'll be talking about here in Psalm 23. Before we get started, I'd like to read to you Psalm 23 real quickly from the English Standard Version. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. As we're getting started and as we're getting into the introduction to this lesson, I wanted to just cut to a quick illustration that I did at home before I came over to do this recording. And it explains a little bit about the baggage that we tend to carry, not only when we're going on trips, but the baggage that we carry through life. So take a quick look at that, and then we'll be back to do the lesson. Okay, so today I'm going to show you as an illustration. Y'all are going to get to see how I pack when I'm going to Brazil. So first of all, the thing I do is I pull out my old beat up suitcase. And you can see it's got tape all over it because it keeps cracking every time I go. And every time I come back, I just put some more tape on it. So the next time I go, I'm actually going to have to put some tape here. But it's a really great suitcase because it holds quite a bit, and I can pack it even with some fragile things because of the way it's designed. So, but I'm not one to travel light, which is what we're talking about today. When I go to Brazil, I take two of these suitcases, and because that's all I'm allowed. If I were allowed more, I would take more. And they can only be 50 pounds each. So this is the right size because I can get that right up to 50 pounds. But when I'm packing, not only do I have my suitcase, but I also have a bag full of bags that I use, and depending on what I need to take. So this is my toiletry bag, and this is basically already packed, but it's got everything in it that I will need for a couple of weeks. It's even got a few extra things in it, but toothpaste, toothbrush, lotions, shampoo, just everything. And that's already packed with what I need to take, so I don't have to do that every single time. So that's all ready to go. And then, of course, I have to take my makeup with me. So I have my own makeup kit, and it's been well used, as you can see by all the stains on it. Part of it's already got some things in it that just kind of stay there. But as I'm putting my makeup on, that I pack it up, and that way I'm sure to never forget something that I might need. But this is my makeup bag. And then I have my hair kit bag, because most of the places I go in Brazil don't have hair dryers, so I have to take my dual voltage hair dryer, and there's room in here for my brushes and for other things that I might use in my hair. And so that's my hair bag. Then, of course, I have my dirty clothes bag, which is a necessity because, well, I have dirty clothes when I come back, and so I like to put them in this bag. So that bag goes. Then I have my medications bag. And so this is where I put, pain relievers, all of my prescription medications, allergy medicines, anything that I think I might need for the trip. And so that all goes in this bag. I also have a jewelry bag. It's something that I adapted as a jewelry organizer, but it's all ready to go, and I can put my earrings and everything in there, and I can see everything. And so it's a nice little and it's flat, so I can usually just lay it on top and it'll fit. I also have shoe and clothing bags. These are actually called shoe bags, but I use them for other things. But I bought these because your shoes can make your other clothes dirty, and so you don't want to do that. And so I put my shoes in these bags. I also have packing cubes, several different sizes that I use. I'm trying to find the right zipper to open, and there are actually 3 in here, 3 different sizes, and I put different types of clothes in there. I have a Delicates bag. It's got a satin lining, so I like to use that for my underwear and things. I have other bags that I use for shoes, and then when I need a bag to carry around down there, I even have one of these. And so I have a ton of different kinds of bags that I will use for various things, and they all stay in my bag. This is my little pill organizer that I take. This is, if I'm just going out of town for a couple of days, I use this for jewelry, and then of course this is my charger for my phone and my watch. And then I also have adapters, because when I go to Brazil, the outlets are different, and I need to be, if I want to plug something in, then I need to have an adapter. So I have 5 of these, because I never know how many I'm going to need. And that's about it for this. But then I also have a carry-on bag. And so sometimes I take this bag for my carry-on. It's nice because it's actually a briefcase. And I put my computer in here. It's got a nice big compartment here that I can put things in. And this one rolls. So I like that. It's got the rollers on it. My mom bought this for me a long time ago, and it's been a really great briefcase. But I also recently got a different carry-on bag. This one's nice because it fits right through on the handle of my suitcase. But in here, we've got more bags. I've got my computer accessories bag that holds adapters and chargers. You can see, I love bags. It also holds my neck pillow and my blanket, because the blanket they give you on the plane is never warm enough. I have a place for my computer in here, but I also have my headphones, because I like to watch a movie on the flight, and so these are nice noise-canceling headphones. And so I carry that, and you can see that I have a lot of bags. And the bag I'm going to be using today, actually, to go over to the church is this one. This is another computer bag that I have, and it's a Vera Bradley. I like it. I'll be putting my briefcase or my notes in here, and I can put my computer in here if I need to, but I don't think I'll be needing it today. So you can see that when I go to Brazil, most of this right here will go with me, and that's a lot of baggage. So first of all, as we're introducing ourselves to this psalm, we know that it's a psalm of David. We know that David was a shepherd. And we know that he knew a lot then about taking care of sheep. And there are a lot of things that we can learn about shepherding just by reading this psalm. And that's why the Philip Keller book is so good for this, because he was a shepherd himself, and he explains a lot about sheep herding. And then we talk about traveling light as far as taking the baggage that we have through life. And we all have baggage. But things that we want to remember, first of all, when we're talking about this psalm in general, first of all, it's very well known. There aren't too many places that you can't go and you can't find some sort of a reference to this. I remember in Brazil, I saw lots of references in hospitals, on the walls. They had the psalm usually posted on the wall. Some people even used bumper stickers in Brazil as it related to Psalm 23. And it's probably the best known Bible passage in the world. It's framed and it's hung on hospital walls. It's scratched on prison walls. It's quoted by the young and whispered by the dying. And then in these lines, sailors have found harbor, the frightened have found a father, and strugglers have found a friend. And that's right straight from Lucato's book. In 6 short verses, we gain an understanding of our God and his profound involvement in our lives. In 113 words, fewer than even this in this summary, we see a God who cares for us. He provides for us. He guides us. He comforts us. He protects us, restores us, and he loves us. He's a God of compassion and courage, and a God that gives us rest, satisfaction, and peace. This is Psalm 23, and we've got the privilege of studying it. So the first thing we want to remember here is that this is a psalm that comforts. When people are reciting it at somebody's deathbed, when people are reciting it at funerals, when people are going through very difficult times and talking about walking through the valley of the shadow of death, we know that these words very many times bring comfort. But what I also want us to remember is that this is a psalm that relieves. In Hebrews 12, verse 1, it says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings to so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us." This verse, which is the first verse in chapter 12, is referring back to the entire chapter of 11, which is what we know as the Heroes of Faith chapter. And that is the chapter in which the writer of Hebrews lists all of those great heroes who walked with God. A lot of them stumbled, but they all relied on God, and that's how they made their way into this chapter, being slated as one of the great heroes of the faith, because they obeyed God and because they had their comfort in God. Ephesians 4:22 also says to put off your old self, which belongs to your former manner of life, and the corrupt through deceitful desires. And I find it interesting that in both of these verses, it's telling us to just unload that weight. The weight of our sin, but also the other weights and the burdens that we are carrying through life. We're caring for our elderly parents. We're caring for young children. We have husbands, fathers, and sons that are deployed overseas. We're in the midst of a pandemic right here in the United States and around the world. And we're all carrying baggage that we need to leave in the Lord's hands. And it's hard to do. I know that. But the fact is, this psalm gives us the opportunity, and these verses help us in giving us that opportunity to drop the weight of the things that keep us from growing spiritually, and it demands that we drop the weights of our sin. And so those are the things that we're going to be looking at in this particular psalm. What are examples of those weights that we're carrying around? Some of them are sinful, others not so much, but we have weights such as self-sufficiency. Are you relying too much on the things that you need to be able to do? Discontentment. Being at home for 21 days straight is getting on everybody's nerves. We know it gets on yours, it gets on everybody else in your household too. Are we discontent with the fact that we can't just go out to the grocery store? We can't just go out to eat when we want to anymore. Are we discontent with that? Are we discontent with the fact that people are losing their jobs because of this? Examples of weights: fatigue, worry, hopelessness, guilt, arrogance, the fear of death, insecurity, the fear of failure, loneliness, shame, doubt of salvation. How about missing someone? Envy, competitiveness, prejudice, self-control, procrastination. I mean, there are so many more that we could add to this list, but these are all weights, burdens, sins that we are carrying around that we need to unload. And in some cases, it means confession. In other cases, it means giving it over to God. So what do we do? This is a psalm that comforts, but it's also a psalm that relieves, because it is the instructions for us relieving ourselves of these burdens with God's help. And it's a psalm that's focused on God Jehovah. When you look at Exodus 3, verses 13 and 14, that says where Moses and God are having a conversation. God is calling Moses to go back to Egypt to free the people. And Moses is giving excuse after excuse after excuse as to why he can't do it. And then finally Moses says to him, "So who do I tell them sends me?" And so in verse 13, he says, God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he said, say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. In these verses, he is using I am, which is translated Yahweh. Yahweh is the name of God, and it is considered to be so holy that the Jews will not pronounce it. And when they would write it, they would take a bath beforehand. They would write the name without the vowels, and then afterwards they would destroy the pen because it was considered to be such a holy name. This psalm is focused on that. How do we know that? Because the first two words in the psalm are the Lord. And the Lord is all capitalized letters. And that is how we know that the word Yahweh has been translated to Lord in our English Bibles. So what does God say to Moses then? I am Yahweh. I am the only one. I am self-sufficient. I am the creator. I am the sustainer. And I am the one who is sending you. You don't need any more explanation than that. And that is something that puts our focus in the entire psalm right there on God Jehovah. Does God have a birth certificate? Of course not. Why? Because he has always existed. He always will. He was not created. He is the creator. We are the created beings, and so we follow him because of that. So the entire weight and focus of this psalm are found in its first two words, the Lord. Right off the bat, right out the starting gate, our concept, our idea of God is challenged. When we see the Lord written in all capital letters, all right, we're inclined to think, if you think back to possibly before you were saved, if you think back to conversations that you've had with other people and other people's ideas of God, what were some of the ideas that we've come up with? Well, first of all, you can have the busy dad who's only available on Sunday. This is the dad that has to go out of town for work every week. He comes home on Saturday exhausted, and finally on Sunday he has time for you. And so we get dressed up and we have time with him, and then we go home, and then on Monday the cycle starts all over again. All right, that's one idea that people have of God. How about a sweet grandfather that comes to visit occasionally, and he brings you presents and he brings you candy and you have a great time, and then he goes home, or he has to take a nap in the afternoon because he's old, and grandfathers tend to do that. Or people have the idea that God is a genie in a bottle. We just rub the bottle and then he poof comes out and he says, what would you like? And we ask for what we want, and then he goes back in the bottle only to come out again when we call him and need him. Okay, all of these are ideas that people have of who God is, but the fact is, God is none of these things. He is not bound by time, space, nature, nothing. He is God. And that's why he uses the word I am, because he is the author and creator of all things. And we cannot forget that. He has time for us on days other than Sunday. He is not just a sweet grandfather that comes and gives us whatever we want and spoils us. He's not a genie in a bottle that we can just summon when we need him and then send him back. God is God, and he is present always, all the time, in our lives, in the good and in the bad. So David chose this name very carefully when he started this psalm with the Lord, using all capital letters, because he could have used Adonai Elohim, which means God is my Lord, which is what is used in translating Lord in other places in the Bible, in which it is not all capitalized. He could have used El Roi, the God who sees. He could have used El Shaddai, God Almighty. He could have used El Elyon, the God Most High. All of these. He could have used El Olam, the everlasting God. He could have used any one of these. But why did he choose Yahweh? Because Yahweh sums all of these up in one word. He is the God. Nothing exists outside of him. God is self-existent. God is self-sustaining. He is being and he is creator. He is ungovernable. We are all governed by climate, we're governed by gravity, we're governed by our health, we're governed by rules and laws. All of us have to abide by something. God does not. He is the creator of all of that. And so we have to remember this as we go into the study for the next time. Think about this, because all of it comes from these very first two words, that this psalm is focused on God, Jehovah, Yahweh, and this is your shepherd.